Hello YouTube and welcome back to another day with the Hero's Downfall. Before we get started, if you are not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe with notifications on. As well, if you enjoy this video, feel free to leave a like. It does help the channel out quite a bit. And if you enjoy what you see here today, go ahead and leave a comment. As well, you can always leave a suggestion for a future video. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. Urza Lord High Artificer. For 2 generic and 2 blue, you get a Human Artificer 1/4 with an ETB of when he enters the battlefield. You get a 0/0 colorless construct creature token with +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue. As well, 5 generic, shuffle your library, then exile the top card. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. Urza is currently #1 mono blue commander on EDH Rec, and this is about 1 year after the release of Urza from Modern Horizons. Alrighty guys, so first thing I want to ask everybody, let me know in the comments if you prefer this version of a deck tech where I just open up the entire deck list and kind of, scroll through it, if you prefer that version, or if you prefer kind of a slideshow effect like I've done in previous videos where I just show you like 8 or a dozen or so cards and then just leave the deck in the description below. I'll still link the description below, but if you could, just let me know which version you prefer. So I won't go over Urza since we already did. We have Ethereum Sculptor here. It's an artifact, so it's going to go ahead and synergize with Urza. You can tap it for blue, then it has nice cost reduction. Gilded Drake is one of my favorite cards in this entire deck, just because it's so cheap to cast. It's not cheap to get a hold of, but cheap to cast. You can go ahead and exchange control of it with a card an opponent controls. Down here, let's see another one I want to mention. Pilla and this fine young chap. They can generate infinite mana between them, since Pilla has the ability to pay 2 and then untap it, add 1 of any color to your mana pool. And then Grand Archetype is going to say pay 1 blue, target artifact becomes blue until end of turn. Tap an untap blue creature you control, add 2 to your mana pool, and spend that only to cast or activate abilities of artifacts. So that's going to go ahead and generate infinite mana. Sai synergizes as well. All of your artifact spells you cast gets you a 1/1 Thopter. So that's going to be a mana rock, as well as just meat shields. You can also attack in the air and block. And then you can sacrifice 2 for 1 colorless and 1 blue to draw a card. We have an array of artifact tutors. They're going to each get pretty much anything you need in the deck just because their converted mana cost search is perfect. Phyrexian Metamorph is just a awesome card in general. It's an artifact, so you can tutor. Well, no, you can't tutor for it, but you can copy any artifact or creature on the battlefield, and you can also tap it for mana. Teferi's in here. Pop up, little guy. Teferi's in here because he synergizes amazingly with Knowledge Pool. Right over here, Knowledge Pool you can tutor for with Treasure Mage, and once you resolve Teferi and Knowledge Pool, your opponents can no longer cast, well, they can no longer resolve spells. Torrential Gearhulk artifact, so you can tutor for it. You can also tap it for mana once it hits the field. It's a big old beefy boy in general, and you can go ahead and flashback an instant card without paying its mana cost. Memnarch is in here because he's Memnarch. Pop up, there we are. Blightsteel Colossus. Now, Treasure Mage almost always tutors for Blightsteel Colossus. If you don't know who Blightsteel Colossus is, you are unimaginably lucky. He is pretty much just a game ender. He's hard to get rid of. Pretty much have to exile him, and with how control-y this deck is, it's going to be very hard for your opponents to get rid of him. We do run a little more Planeswalkers than this version of the deck normally does. The one Planeswalker that I would absolutely urge you to use, if you're going to only pick one, is going to be Karn the Great Creator. For his static ability, activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. So if you go ahead and drop that with Microsynth Lattice, your opponents can no longer tap their lands for mana, since that would essentially be an activated ability. Tezzeret the Seeker is also great in this deck for his +1 untap 2 target artifacts, and Teferi Temporal Archmage for his -1 to untap up to 4 target permanents. So it's just essentially ramp and combo enabling things. Now down here we have all of our instants and sorceries. Pact of Negation, Brainstorm, Mystical Tutor, Swan Song. Mystical Tutor is going to almost always get like a Whirl of Invention, Dramatic Reversal, something like that. Swan Song, because it's one of my favorite counter spells. It's been in Magic since Theros, and I still surprise people with it all the time. Cyclonic Rift because it's Cyclonic Rift. Dramatic Reversal, this is going to combo with Isochron Scepter, which is going to be this bad boy right here. You just imprint Dramatic Reversal onto an Isochron Scepter, and it's going to generate infinite mana, which means you can infinitely play your deck with Urza's 5-cost ability. You can, play Blue Sun Zenith and just drain somebody out immediately. It is very, very, very great. Mana Drain, because it's a counterspell with ramp, utilizing that colorless mana is great. Muddle the Mixture is in here as a budget version of Spellseeker. For its transmute, you can just go ahead and discard it and get, like I said, Mana Drain, Dramatic Reversal, Cyclonic Rift, something like that. But Spellseeker would also be perfectly fine. Blue Sun Zenith and any other X card, like I said, if you happen to hit it with Urza, is going to just fizzle, but I do believe that the risk outweighs the negative side effects of it. Capsize is in here because it is the best blue removal in my opinion. Alright, Fabricate is another tutor for an artifact, and it's going to be any artifact. So you can go ahead and pull your Microsynth Lattice, your Blightsteel Colossus, something like that, and just put it directly into your hand. War of Invention. Again, you do have the risk with the X cost, but otherwise you can just at instant speed search your library for any artifact you need and go ahead and put it directly on the battlefield. So at your opponent's end step, you could search for Blightsteel Colossus or something like that. Cryptic Command, because it's Cryptic Command. Paradoxical Outcome is another great card. It's at instant speed, so you can return any number of target non-token permanents you control to its owner's hand. So you can protect your stuff while also utilizing card draw. Nexus of Fate, Temporal Mastery, and Expropriate are absolutely astounding extra turn cards. Expropriate's probably my favorite. A little bit of advice that I will give you: if you're ever on the opposite end of Expropriate, just choose permanent. Having something stolen does suck, but it's much better. If your opponent's going to have more than one extra turn, it's essentially game. Anytime you cast Expropriate or any extra turn card, you're more than likely setting up to win the game. So if you're on the receiving end of it, just choose, money, and your opponent will steal something, but it's not as bad as just losing the game. Enter the Infinite. Combos very well with Omniscience. It allows you to draw your entire deck and just win the game. Alrighty. Artifacts. Darksteel Relic is an indestructible mana rock with Urza, Spellbook, unlimited hand size, and a mana rock with Urza that you can play for free. Expedition Map, very cheap, and there's a couple of lands that do matter. Manifold is a combo enabler in that you can play it for very, very cheap and untap an artifact. Soul Ring because it's Soul Ring, Howling Mind because it's Howling Mind, and you can ramp. And if you can tap it for 1 blue, then your opponents do not get the extra card draw. Isochron Scepter, I already mentioned. Lightning Greaves, Sapphire Medallion. You can cost reduct all your blue spells, which you see all of those over there to the left. And you can also tap it for mana. All right. Over here, we're going to get to some of the meaner artifacts. Winter Orb, if you don't already know, is only 2 to play. Players cannot untap more than 1 land during their untap step. So this does have a Oracle text, which is if it's untapped. So you could tap this for 1 blue mana at the beginning of your turn so that you are not punished by Winter Orb, but so that all your opponents are. Basalt Monolith is very, very good ramp that can go infinite. Mirage Mirror is, in my opinion, a super underrated card. You can use this at instant speed and copy multiple in response to different things, copy creatures, artifacts, enchantments, or lands. Static Orb is very similar to Winter Orb. It reads, players cannot untap more than 2 permanents during their untap step. So same thing. It has an Oracle text, so you can go ahead and look at that, but you can basically tap it to add 1 blue to your mana pool so that you are not punished for this. Storage Matrix is along the same lines. It's an oppressive, cheap artifact that you can use to ramp yourself and to hurt your opponents. Aetherflux Reservoir is another game ender. It's very cheap to play. Your life is going to already be at 40, so you're just 10 away from Death Starring somebody. You can use some of your bounce effects that we saw previously with our instants and sorceries to bounce some of your cheap artifacts to your hand and then replay them to just ting up your life total, protect yourself if need be, but more than likely you're just gonna, laser cannon somebody to death. Prototype Portal. Another really cool card, so you can just imprint an artifact or a card that you really like and just go ahead and create it over and over again. I actually like to do this with Isochron Scepter or Darksteel Relic. Thran Dynamo, Unwinding Clock, and Knowledge Pool, like I said, combos very well with Teferi and Microsynth Lattice. Now, I don't run an awful lot of enchantments, but the ones that we have are very, very good. Back to Basics is going to punish a multicolored commander deck. Mirage Mirror, that is not what that's called. Mirror Maid, I'm sorry, is going to go ahead and copy an artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. So that can be any artifact or enchantment. It can be something that you have. It can be something that an opponent has. Rhystic Study is in here because it's Rhystic Study. And Thopter Spy Network, it's kind of like a pseudo Psi, so it's going to do some card draw and create you some mana rocks and some blockers, and Omniscience, of course. Alrighty, guys, we are almost done. I really appreciate you sticking through this and watching. Ancient Tomb is ramp. Buried Ruin is going to get you back an artifact that you might have lost. Dark Depths is really, really cool because it combos with Thespian Stage. So you can play Dark Depths and then have, where are you, you little bad boy, Thespian Stage, and go ahead and remove all the counters by creating Thespian Stage as a copy of Dark Depths. And it's just a kind of like little sneak attack to get a 20/20 indestructible flyer. High Market, I actually put this in here. You don't need to necessarily run this if you don't want to. I put this in here to protect, well, not protect, but to punish people that try to steal my creatures. So kind of like if someone had a Gilded Drake of their own, or if they wanted to control magic something, I would just in response sacrifice the creature. So the creature is still lost, but it's better than my opponent having one of my creatures and having it used against me. Homeward Path, same principle. It allows each player to gain control of all creatures he or she controls. So if you have stolen something, this will give it back to the controller or the owner. But if someone tries to steal all your stuff, then you can also use it as well. And this deck's not really punished for the colorless mana. Inventor's Fair is an absolute auto-include at the beginning of your upkeep. If you control 3 or more artifacts, gain 1 life. But you can also sacrifice it and tutor for an artifact. We do have 23 Islands, Maze of Ith. Mystic Sanctuary is a new card from Throne of Eldraine. I don't know how this isn't at least an uncommon. It's really, really good in my opinion. If you have any deck that has access to blue, you should absolutely be running this. Reliquary Tower, because this deck is going to draw an absolute silly amount of cards. Strip Mine, because it's Strip Mine. I like to use this to blow up somebody's what is it called, Maze of Ith, or if they have a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx or something like that. Temple of the False Gods, I've actually considered taking this out because I've had it too early a game where I actually can't benefit from it, but it is still very good. Thespian Stage already mentioned, and Wasteland. It's just another destroy effect for somebody's very important land. Alright guys, well that's the entire deck. Like I said, I'll go ahead and link the description below. I've had really good luck with this deck. Not to sound arrogant, but since Urza came out in June of last year, I've pretty much been playing it at least once a week. Not so much recently with the coronavirus, just to immediately date this video. But since this came out, I've played it at least once a week, and I've never lost with it. I mean, I've played some pretty competitive opponents, and I've actually never lost with it. I've had some close matches, but otherwise, this deck has always pulled through. Any situation I've ever found myself in, I've pretty much always managed to have an answer, and it's extremely, extremely satisfying. It's very reliable. It is just a great deck overall. If you have the money and you want a competitive CEDH deck, this is, in my opinion, the way to go. And what's really interesting, if you're scared of that price, which I completely understand, this is not even the most expensive version. You could add Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, Grim Monolith, all sorts of very expensive mana rocks, but I don't feel they're necessary. I like to put those cards in my commander decks where the commander doesn't literally generate, moxes. So that's everything, guys. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate you leaving a like. If you have any comments or if you want to suggest future videos, I do plan on doing many more deck techs. Feel free to leave it in the comments below. As always, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day.